don't have a good place to put him to get his attention. I could put him up here, I guess. But this is just a sign that I'm ready for tonight's lanterns. We're just a few hours away. They release it at 9 o'clock on East Coast, which is 6 o'clock here. It's 4 o'clock now here, so 2 hours. 2 hours, and we finally get to watch Lanterns, which is a show I have been waiting for a very, very long time. So good evening, everybody. How are you? Ed, good to see you. 1 second. You can just feel that tickle, that throat thing going. There we go. So, did I watch the first 5 minutes? I absolutely did, Andrew. Yeah, it is it's only 90 today. I watched the first 5 minutes and I realized that Jon Stewart has one of the most insane fathers ever. Going full William Tell on this kid. And then, yeah, it was just kind of an interesting setup. I like that we get to see the two parallel, and the age difference and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to that. But we'll talk Lanterns. We'll do that near the end of the show. I did want to talk a little bit about Reacher. The first 3 episodes have dropped for season 4 of Jack Reacher. And this is based off of the novel Gone Tomorrow. Hey, Dan, we landed on your pick last night for Adam Strange Planet Heist. Start reading for the next Saturday. I love that book. It's one of the most underrated books. It's got great art by Pasquale Ferry, and the writing. I think it's Andy Landing. It's just a really, really good story. Yeah. So the first 3 episodes of Reacher. Now, I've read the book. That's what I do. I like to read the appropriate Reacher novel before the season starts. I had already read Killing Floor before we had gotten to the first season, so that one I had already had. Because they're jumping around. They're not doing them in order. And they're not doing them as a straight adaptation. They're making some changes. I can tell you, if you've seen the first 3 episodes, not a lot happens in the books if Jack's not there. So it's not first-person narrative, but it's pretty much we follow Jack. And in the series, there is actually a time where the small town cop and the city cop are off doing their own thing. So that's definitely different. I don't remember the reporter in the book. It's been a little while since I read it. So I'm curious to see the changes they're going to make. When they get out of the place they were being held, a lot more in the books happen in that place. So it's interesting to see the changes. And it also feels like they're moving very quickly. But I know what's coming up, and there's some big, interesting twists coming up. So I feel like they've kind of looped back around. The first Jack Reacher series first season was very much like Jack from the books. Yeah, he's working with the local cops, but he's, not really attaching himself to people. Yeah, he hooks up with the female cop, but he's distant, you know? And that's the thing is Reacher doesn't say a lot. He says the minimum of what he has to. He can it seems like he's the type that could go for days without actually speaking to anybody. So season 2, when they brought in his old unit and moved ahead for that, that was felt different. Felt like they were trying to, I don't know, tone him down a little bit. And then season 3, with the young kid that he kind of gets involved in. Though there's a mother in it, and they eliminate the mother character altogether, which I thought was interesting. But it felt like they were trying to soften Jack around the edges. Well, this new season, this feels like the original Jack again. This feels like, if he's going to answer you, it's probably going to be a smart ass comment, that type of thing. So it's neat to see them come back around. I haven't read the book for episode for season 5 yet, called Make Me, but it's queued up. I've been a little distracted by Dungeon Crawler Carl, which we'll talk about in a minute. I think Alan Richardson may be getting a little too buff because his walking's become a little funny. And you guys watch this when you're watching the show. He's kind of lumbering along now. And I don't remember that from previous seasons. So maybe he should just ease back just a little bit, You don't have to get that big. We get it. You're Jack. You're insane. But there's a great line in the second episode where 3 people are in cages, and Jack is one of them, and he is tied down to a bed where the other 2 aren't, or he's chained down. And he says, well, why am I the only one restrained? And the other guy goes, have you looked at you? Thought that was funny. So, but like the first 3, I think they did a good job. Releasing them at the same time is a good idea. I like when they do that. They give you a big dose, and then we're going to go weekly. Early on, Reacher, I think season 1 and 2, they just dropped them all. Hey, Mr. Nope. So, how dare you, sir? But, yeah, I keep seeing Richardson getting into other projects and stuff. I guess there's this new one coming up with Owen Wilson where they're trying to deliver an organ from an R.H. Knoll patient. And it's funny because I just been looking into R.H. Knoll. And if you don't know what that is, R.H. Knoll is the rarest blood type. There's only about 45, at most 60 people in the world with that blood type. They're considered universal donors because they're not positive or negative. There's no, I'm forgetting the term for it. But yeah, their blood type is so rare that they could give it to anybody and it would work. The problem is they can only take blood types from other people who are RH Knoll. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking there's a vampire story in there somewhere, or I'm going to use that R.H. Knoll thing somewhere. That yeah, that's too good to not. There's actually a database that keeps track of the people with that blood type because it's so rare. So the fact that somebody finally got around to using it in a movie, I'm thinking, someone should have done it sooner. Antigens, thank you. That's what I wanted to know. There's no antigens in the blood. So yeah, I thought that it was also known as golden blood. Yeah, I came across that. And I'm like, what? Something I had never heard of. And it, of course, started clicking ideas. So, um, I like seeing him get more and more work. I think he's a good person. I think he's a good actor. Um, and I think there's more to him than a lot of just big buff guys. I mean, he can sing. He can he can act. He can really actually show emotions and stuff. So yeah, I like Richardson. I like to see him do more, and really enjoyed him in the movie with Henry Cavill and Henry Golding and all them. Carrie Ells, the not League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. That's it. So, all right, but yeah, Reacher season 4 kicking off well. Season 5 is already filming. Let's see, so that would be creepy knowing that they keep a database on you for your blood type. It would be, but also the fact that if you need blood, they know where all the people are that can give it to you. That would be a little bit reassuring, I would think. So now imagine if somebody on that list suddenly went missing. See, there's a story there. I'm telling you, there's a story. All right, let's move on to. I talked about this before, Dungeon Crawler Carl. I'm fascinated by this book. Yeah, that movie should work. Yes. So, I had heard a lot about Dungeon Crawler Carl. A lot of people talking about it. I got friends of mine who I'm used to talking about. They're talking about the Dresden Files and Mistborn and other books like that. And suddenly everybody's talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl. They just announced that Seth MacFarlane is making a live action movie. So I finally sat down and I read the first book, or listened to it in my case, and I liked it. But I wasn't quite understanding the hype. And then I went ahead and listened to book 2. And I was still a little bit like, okay, I don't get it yet. But I did know that Lisa would love the book because a lot of humor, a lot of gaming stuff. So I just went ahead and picked up the first book, physical copy, because she likes reading physical copies. And I just gave it to her. I said, here you go. Because I had told her about it. She goes, yeah, that sounds like something I might like. I said, well, tell me if you want me to get you a copy or if you want to listen to my audiobook. She was like, yeah. And I just went, no, I'm just going to buy the book. So I bought it for her and she read it and absolutely loved it. Immediately ordered the second book. She's halfway through that. The third book is here already. But I was questioning. I even went on TikTok and I asked all the people on there, because TikTok is just filled with people who read Dungeon Crawler Carl. And I said, okay, what am I missing? When does it go from, oh, these are fun books, But I'll read this other one first, and I'll come back to it. Okay, now I'll do this one. I mean, I even did a Court of Owls book before I did the third Carl book. So I started listening to the third book, and everybody kept telling me the third book is the key. That through the third book, books 1, 2, and 3, the dungeon is happening to Carl. From book 4 on, Carl is happening to the dungeon. And I mean, I put up the post asking people, and it is my most popular TikTok. 6,000 views, 300 comments on it. And the most commented thing is that quote. First 3 books is Carl, the dungeon is happening to Carl. Book 4 on, Carl happens to the dungeon. So I figure somebody said that in an interview and people picked up on it. But it's true. So I listened to book 3. And a couple things happen in book 3 that you go, oh, there's a lot more to this. And it's kind of like with Dresden. With Dresden, book 1 is pretty good. It's a good book. You'll enjoy it. But it still just feels like this small thing. In book 2, it gets a little bit bigger. But then you get to these other books and you realize the universe is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And now, on book 19, it went from being this little urban fantasy to this epic fantasy. Well, that's what's happening with Carl. Is the first couple books are world building, and then book 4, it's like Carl decides to kind of, I don't want to say get revenge, but yeah, I guess, aliens came and killed most of the Earthlings, threw the rest of them into a dungeon, and is making them go through it for their entertainment. Yeah, Carl's ready to get revenge, but it's still one of the funniest books and the most. But in that humor, you really start caring about the characters, and you're seeing the character growth. And I went from finishing book 3 right into listening to book 4. And by the end of book 4, I'm like, I get it. I understand now. I see why people are so connected to this book. I think I told you guys last week that it was definitely in my top 10. I gave you 9 books. I forgot one book that I was going to mention. But, 10 books, it was in my top 10 and it was moving up. Comfortably in the top 5 now. Possibly top 3. It's going to be hard for anything to budge the Dresden Files, out of my number 1. Mistborn is a clear second, but I could see Carl sliding into that spot. I'm about to start listening to book 5. I took a break. About halfway through the third book of the Unorthodox Chronicles, which is James J. Butcher, the son of Jim Butcher. So the guy that writes Dresden Files, his son is now an author and is putting out a book series. And those are good too. Not as good as his dad's, but they're definitely good. But yeah, I get Carl now. And the other thing I'm enjoying is Lisa will lay next to me while she's reading. Right before I came on the show, we were enjoying the cooler air today, and I was reading Absolute Wonder Woman Volume 2, and she was reading the second. Carl Dungeon Crawler Carl book. And there were points where she would just start laughing out loud. Just hearty laughing. And I love the way Lisa laughs. Lisa doesn't hold back. When she laughs and enjoys something, you know it. She's got a great laugh. So just sitting there reading the comic and then hearing the laughter, and it's like, that is so cool. That, I can tell how much joy she's getting out of this book. So if you guys are looking for something to read, you should try it. Okay. Thoroughly enjoyable. I love the audiobooks because the Jeff Hayes is amazing. All the different voices he does, and they're hilarious. But reading it straight out is funny too. So, and again, if you're a gamer, this is going to hit home for you, So by next week, I'll probably be 2 more books in. I'm going to try to keep doing one in between so I don't rush through them, because there's only 8 books finished. It's going to be a total of 10, but 8 books are finished, and I don't want to go through them too quick. So I'll probably do book 5 next, and then jump back and do an Alex Ferris book. Or been meaning to listen to some Elric stuff. I haven't listened to that in a long time. Matt Hawkins was rereading that and kind of clued in my head. I was like, I should reread Elric. So now, before we go on to Lanterns, I want to talk about something else. And this is something that hit me this week. A friend of mine passed away. His name was Brian Holguin. Now, you may be familiar with him. Brian was a comic book writer. He wrote a lot of Spawn books. He wrote Kiss Psycho Circus for McFarlane. He did a lot of stuff at Top Cow. But he was also the co-creator of the image book Aria with Brian Haberlin. And the two Brians were friends since high school. So, but Brian Holguin was a neat guy. I met him back in the early 2000s, right after the turn of the century. I had started a website called Comic World News. This was well before I ever was going to hook up with Bleeding Cool. I wanted to do long form interviews with comic creators and stuff like that. So my buddy and I started this website. It might still exist. We ended up selling it off to Comicraft, but Comic World News. And I got to interview a lot of really cool people for that site, because there wasn't a lot of comic sites out there at the time. And Steve Niles, I met through interviewing him for that site. And, a lot of my early writing was co-writing with Steve. And a lot of the people I know in the industry I met because I joined Steve's message board back in the early 2000s. Ben Templesmith, Liam Sharp, Dan Taylor, who was my editor at IDW, Chris Ryle, who was editor-in-chief at IDW for a long time, Butch Brand, can't remember Butch's last name at the moment. But yeah, I met a lot of great people through that website. Well, and Steve's message board. But I also met Brian Polito and then did a long form interview with him. Scott Alley, who was the first editor who really gave me the time of day. Jeff Marriott, another one. But I interviewed Brian Holguin. And it was a good interview, I really enjoyed talking to him. And I remember one of the things he told me. I asked him, well, how did you get into comics? And Brian had a unique background compared to just about everybody else I know to get into comics. Brian used to work as a journalist at Rolling Stone magazine. At one point, he interviewed Ronald Reagan. Now, when I heard that, here I am, this novice interviewer, interviewing a guy who interviewed a president. Yeah, I got a little nervous. Be fair, I got a lot nervous. But Brian was just sweet as could be, just nice. Answered every question, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. And just kind of kept in touch after that. It was really neat. And I remember going to a convention. I was on the list for the convention, and he hit me up. He goes, "Hey, you're going to be at this show, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "You want to grab lunch?" Sure. And that became kind of a thing. If we were at a convention together, we'd try to grab lunch or dinner or something together. And just really enjoyed chatting with him and catching up with him all the time. And like me, he was a big guy. We were close in height. I think he was 6'4". But, and I'm kind of drawn to the writers like that because myself, you kind of become one. Like James Hudnall was another guy that I kind of he almost became like a mentor to me. James gave me a lot of advice and stuff, and Brian did the same. And now both of them are gone, and I had kind of fallen out of touch with them over the last few years because I haven't been going to conventions. I haven't physically been, well enough to do that much walking and stuff. And I saw Brian Haberlin posted about Brian, and I was gutted. I was absolutely gutted. Because I remember a few weeks back thinking, I should reach out to Brian. I should see how he's doing. I wonder how he's doing. And I didn't. It sucks, man. It really does. When you care about people, keep in touch with them. Reach out to them. Pick a day. Pick a day once a month just to email, just to say hi, just send a text. Just take a moment and touch base. Because you don't know when you won't have that chance anymore. Now, I wasn't as good of friends with him as the other Brian was, and I didn't know him from high school, and I could probably count on, we probably got lunch together half a dozen times, maybe more. But I felt like we were friends, and it makes me sad. It makes me sad he's gone way too soon. He was 62 years old, and people shouldn't die that early. I just think about the stories he had left to tell. I think about his family and his friends. Sorry for being downer, guys, but I just wanted to talk about him. If you're out and you see, some old Spawn books, or you see anything of Aria, Aria, that's from the two Bryans, pick them up. read them, look through them. They're great stuff. Brian was a great writer. So, yep. All right. We'll move on to, if I didn't bum you guys out too much, let's talk about a little bit about lanterns. Thanks, Ed. All right. So, real quick, we should talk about the D23 stuff. If you haven't seen it, there's a new trailer out for Vision Quest, which looks phenomenal to me. That's going to be the wrap up of the WandaVision, Agatha All Along Vision Quest thing. And that looks fantastic to me. It's the guy who did the third season Picard. One of my favorite minor characters, Paladin, is going to be in it. Todd Stashwick is going to play him. And I have no idea how he's going to be involved, but I love that. If you haven't seen the clip, there's moments of Vision as his human form talking to Ultron in his human form. So we get Paul Bettany and James Spader in scenes together. And that is phenomenal. You know, it looks like it's going to borrow a lot from Tom King's Vision run. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you, Mr. Nope. So that I thought was cool. We got to see a teaser for Doomsday. I'm still not there yet. I want to see some. I don't want the trailer to only be, "What have you done, Victor?" Down stuff. I want some action. I want some humorous moments. I want, what's going to get me excited to go see the movie. So that's where I think Marvel has been kind of lacking. Is Vision Quest looked exciting to me. There was humorous moments. There were big moments. I haven't seen that from Doomsday yet. I saw some of them in Spider-Man with Frank and stuff like that, but so I'm hoping to see that from Doomsday. But the cast for the upcoming X-Men movie was announced. And that is interesting. Charles Abbott as Professor Xavier. I remember him as the Foreigner in Kraven, as much as I've tried to erase Kraven from my memory. Mr. Nope says, I'm done watching trailers for the most part, but I think I'll still watch the first trailer for stuff. Feel like the trailers. Yeah, it's a good idea. Hey, Jay. But I don't know anything about Charles Abbott. And I will admit it's hard for me to picture him as Xavier. I mean, I keep looking at pictures of him and putting my thumb over the top of his head, trying to picture him bald. So I'm going to have faith that Kevin Feige is going to continue doing great casting. But then the rest of the cast, I don't know most of these people anyway. Sadie Sink I saw in the Spider-Man movie, so I'm good with that. She was great in Spider-Man. Kit Connor as Cyclops. Okay. Kit Connor sounds like he's the star of an old Western, but I'm good with that. Maya Boyd from stage and screen, or from mainly stage productions, as Storm. All right. Samara Weaving, I haven't really seen much of her in things, and she does look a lot like Margot Robbie, but that's less of a concern to me as already having Emma Frost on the team, because I feel like the big problem I've had with the X-Men movies is they never build them up. They always just throw like everybody in, you know. With the Avengers, they started with then they started that they had the base group, and I feel like that the X-Men could use that approach, especially if they went back to the original five. Iceman, Beast, Cyclops, Jean, and Angel. But they want to get to the popular ones. They want to get to Wolverine. They want to get to Emma Frost. They want to get to Rogue and Gambit and stuff. I do not know how to pronounce her name. I believe it's Inde Navarrete as Rogue. Seems interesting to me. I know she got a lot of acclaim for Obsession. So, see, that's the thing, is we don't know if she's going to be on the team, or maybe she's working for Mr. Sinister. And of course, Adam Driver is Mr. Sinister. I will be honest, I have yet to see Adam Driver in something I've enjoyed. I did not like him as Kylo Ren. I kind of liked him in the Saturday Night Live skits that he did, but I don't know. Haven't seen that movie. I went, oh, now I get it with him. So we'll have to see. Yeah, she was on Superman and Lois. So I think it's an interesting cast. I have a feeling we're not done yet, especially since there's like one guy on the team. And I think there'll be a couple more guys. I mean, there's Xavier and Cyclops, but it's Rogue, Storm, Jean, Emma. So, oh yeah, I don't see a problem with Adam Driver being Mr. Sinister. I just don't, I hear great about what he does. Again, my main experience with him is Kylo Ren, and I cannot stand that character. It's just so bad. But yeah, the cast is going to open up. So, yep. I think there's probably still some deals they have to make. And there's probably some that they're going to keep quiet until later. That teaser that made it sound like Deadpool and Wolverine are going to show up in Doomsday. You don't want to introduce a new Wolverine before Hugh Jackman finishes. So Andrew says he gets where I'm coming from. Yeah. Yeah, Kylo Ren's just a little whiny goth. Anyway. What was the other? So, yeah, I'm looking forward to X-Men. And it looks like we're going to have a very busy 2028. Because we're going to get the second Batman. We're going to get X-Men. We're going to get Ghost Rider at some point. And Black Panther. And there's some other movies in that thing, too. And I wouldn't be surprised if DC gets something out in that month. Or that year as well. So, but we shall see. All right. Let's move on to Lanterns and talk a little bit about that. I have seen the reviews of Lanterns. And people have seen either 4 episodes or 7 episodes. And it's kind of interesting that the 4 episodes people kind of give the idea that they like it, but they feel it kind of leans too much into the True Detective and not enough into the comics. That seems to be the general consensus. The 7 episode people don't have that complaint, which tells me the comic stuff really gets going in the second half. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with waiting, and letting it be grounded in the beginning, get more comic booky as it goes. I'm real fascinated by the split timeline and what they're going to do with it. I know my theory is that there'll be a time where, how do I put this? Now, this is just, like it says, wild ass speculation. There's been rumors that, and no one's confirmed this, that Hal Jordan may not make it to the series, and that, we get the 10-year time jump. My thought is that something's going to happen. What we'll get in the first episode is we'll get mostly in 2016, and then we'll get a flash of 2026. And in that, we'll find out that Jon Stewart's been missing for a while. We don't know where Hal is. And in that time, Guy was appointed Green Lantern. See, that makes sense to me. And that the rest of the season will be about fleshing out what happens in 2016 and then dealing with the fallout in 2026, back and forth. That's what I think is going to happen. But can't say for sure because I don't know. I didn't get the 4 or 6 or 7 episodes. And it's been a long time since I got screeners. I used to get them when I was at Bleeding Cool. I used to watch Krypton well in advance of the thing so I could write up stories. That was awesome. Let's see. Nope, it's just one episode tonight, which I prefer. I do not like when a show drops all their episodes at once because look at the Penguin. We got one episode of the Penguin and everybody was talking about it. Then the next week came, we got another episode of Penguin and everybody was talking about it. You get a show that drops, like, Netflix does that, where they just drop the whole thing at once. You binge it, and the next thing you know, no one's talking about your show. Because they did it all that weekend. Everybody watched it, everybody talked about it, and now no one's talking about it. So spreading it out over time keeps it in the conversation longer. Plus, it gives shows like this a chance to help build the hype. That's what these kind of shows, mine or Jay's, or when we talk about these kind of shows, it builds the hype, the speculation. Now, we could be wrong and it's all in good fun. And I hope nobody gets to the point where it's like, heavy spoilers said it was going to be this and it's not. And I don't like it. I know that people are speculating, right? They're going based off of what we've read in comics and what we see as potential. But you can do that when you get it dropped in over 8 weeks. I mean, if you think about it, we got 3 episodes of Reacher. We're going to have Reacher for the next 5 weeks. We're going to have Lanterns for the next 8 weeks. We've got Star Trek Strange New Worlds for 4 more weeks or 6 more weeks. We've got Vision Quest coming up. We've got Percy Jackson coming up. We have so many really great shows to talk about that we can do these kind of nerd chats. And I think this is where it's really fun, where we get to talk about these shows and look and see how we feel, because as you get into these shows, you you understand. Oh, Neely is another one, yeah, where you get Neely right after. But you can kind of dig deep into these shows, and you get more from them. So I know with WandaVision, when that came out, that's where it kind of all started. And there was so many Easter eggs and stuff that the average person didn't know, but they could watch these shows and pick up on it. It's like, that's the Grim Reaper's helmet in the animated opening. Why? What's with the guy with the bees? All those things. Now, a lot of the speculation was wrong, but it got the dialogue going. And to me, that is what's fun about these shows. It's in a way kind of like what we used to do at comic shops. You know, we'd go in, we'd pick up the new books and we'd read it, and then we'd talk about them with our friends. And, oh, do you think Professor Xavier is really dead? Oh, why has Wolverine suddenly gotten, what happened to his, when will he get his adamantium back? Superman can't really be dead, all that stuff. That's the fun in doing that. That's why I love doing this show, is to be able to come on and talk about it. We haven't had that in a little while. But we have so many great shows coming up and on right now that we can have these kind of conversations. We can talk about the bizarre stories they're doing on Strange New Worlds. We just had an all black and white episode. Okay. Prior to that, we had an episode similar to the Hangover, where they're trying to piece together being drunk on a planet. Then we had a horror episode. You know what the next episode is? We're getting puppets. They're doing a puppet episode, like Smile Time for Angel, except for in Angel is just one puppet. They're all becoming puppets. I would watch any show that did a puppet episode. If they did a puppet episode of Love Island, I'd watch it. I'm down with the puppets. That should be a t-shirt. I'm down with the puppets. So I'm looking forward to Thursday's Strange New Worlds, because it's puppets. But I'm really looking forward to Lanterns tonight. I didn't see it on YouTube, but I saw it on HBO. And if you have HBO or HBO Max and you haven't watched it yet, if you go to where Lanterns is currently bookmarked, you can watch the trailer or whatever. There's a short 4 or 5 minute behind the scenes thing. And it shows Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre interacting and how they get along. And that was so much fun to watch. I'm a guy that loves the behind the scenes stuff. I still buy physical media because I want that stuff. The hour-long thing they did for Making of Superman. I've watched it multiple times. I have a bad day. I'll turn on Superman. Sometimes I'll just turn on the behind the scenes stuff. So finding that little 4-minute video was awesome. Seeing Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre joking around and figuring things out and stuff. I am so looking forward to this relationship between them. By the way, for all of you who look at Kyle Chandler and think Friday Night Lights, I curse you for being young. Because I look at Kyle Chandler and I think of the show Early Edition. And if you don't know Early Edition, you're missing out. That was a weird-ass show where every morning he would open up his front door and there'd be a newspaper there. But the newspaper was for the next day. And he would see the headlines and then have to figure out how to make things better. And I don't think we ever found out how he was getting the newspapers. At least I don't remember. But it was a good series. And it was Kyle Chandler doing this stuff. And that's where I know Kyle Chandler from. You know, the fact that he would get this newspaper and feel obligated to make things better. It was a cool character. It was a good show. It was on CBS. I love the premise. And because it kind of like, it reminded me a little bit of Voyagers that I used to watch when I was a kid, where they would show up with, time travel with the Omni. They couldn't control where they went, and it would show up and it would be flashing red, meant that something's out of place, and they've got to figure out what it is, and they've got to fix it, and it goes green and flashes green when it's fixed. That was a neat premise too, so I like that idea. And or Quantum Leap had a similar premise. But early edition, just an average guy who woke up and every morning his newspaper told him something bad was going to happen, and he had 24 hours to fix it. So that's Kyle Chandler to me. Friday Night Lights, great. I didn't really watch it that much, but I get that people love that show. But yeah, early edition. And now Green Lantern. So I'm like you guys. For me, my Green Lantern's Hal Jordan. And getting an older Hal, knowing that the main Green Lantern for this universe is going to end up being John Stewart, that hurts a little, But we get Hal. He's not just being skipped over. He's going to get a good show. And that I love. It's like if they wanted to do Wally West instead of Barry Allen, as long as they gave Barry some time, it's tough. When you're 56 years old and you read back to the 70s, you started reading comics in the 70s, that's your comic world. Hal and Barry and Bruce and Clark and Diana, and that's what you want. And you don't want them to rush, You don't want Jason Todd, your Damian Wayne Robin, because you haven't had Dick Grayson Robin. You haven't had Jason Todd. You haven't had Tim Drake. You want those stories. So it's tough. You get to my age and you become the get off my lawn guy, because there are so many people nowadays that want to rush to the modern stories. It's what doomed Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire. Was Sam Raimi wanted to tell the older stories and build up. He went with Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Sandman, but the studio forced him to put in Venom because Venom's popular. That's the kind of stuff. I want to see them build up slowly. It was tough for me to accept that Hank Pym was old and that we were starting with Scott Lang. But Hank got story. Hank existed. So I can understand it. I can get behind it because Hank's remembered, and Hank gets that amazing moment in Quantum Mania when he shows up with all the giant ants and he just kind of strolls in with the trench coat and stuff. That's Hank's moment, Ed likes Sky Gardner, And Guy seems to be the hinge pin in this universe. He's already been in Peacemaker, Superman. He's going to be in Lanterns. And they just announced that he's going to show up in the Mr. Miracle animated series that's in production. So, yeah, you like Guy, you're going to get a lot of Guy. So, all right. So, are you guys ready for Lanterns? If there's anything in the show that you don't understand, that you need a primer on, I'm probably going to do one on the Manhunters. I didn't want to do it yet because I'm not sure how they're going to do it. But if there's anything you guys need, then let me know. And I will put together, you know, you need a primer on the Guardians or on the Manhunters, something like that. Let me know. And we'll get that on the show. It says, oh, I didn't know he was on Peacemaker. I only knew about Superman. Yeah, it's just a cameo in Peacemaker, season 2, episode 1. That's all you need to watch to get your Guy Gardner fix. There's also a super obscure Batman villain in that same episode, right around the same time. One of those episodes, one of those characters that you look and go, did they really just put them in here? And it's not Condiment King. So, all right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. That's a pretty good show. It's not that hot, but I'm tired. So this is my words of advice for you today. Take a day, reach out to people that you haven't talked to in a while. Just say hi, ask them how they're doing. Just check in. Let them know you care. And the second thing is, and you guys probably do this, but if you haven't, we all got into this because of comic books. I spent this afternoon reading a comic. Like I said, I read the volume 2 of Absolute Wonder Woman. Remember to read. Pick up your comics. You know, just any comic. Just remember why we love them. There's that joy in reading a story. So don't let your world become so chaotic and hectic that you don't take those times for yourself. So that's my word of advice. Everybody have a great week. We'll talk Reacher, Strange New Worlds, and Lanterns next week. And again, hit me up on social media if there's anything you guys specifically want me to cover, okay? Have a great night, folks. Be well and enjoy Lanterns.